Hello everyone and welcome back to designing a website in Figma. This is the second part of a series of videos on designing a website from scratch in Figma. And in this second episode, we are going to focus on the title area, which means the area of a website, of a homepage, a landing page, where you get the main title, some description, maybe a button and an image. In the previous video, we have created a header navigation menu. We have used components and instances of these components to assemble a header navigation. And then also we used prototyping tools to actually make sure that this header navigation behaves as a header navigation, meaning when you scroll, it stays in a single place, and you also get hover effects when you hover over your buttons in the header navigation menu. And now let's get started on the title area. Let's actually quickly outline what is going to be in this new title section. So definitely we are going to get a title, right? It's not going to be as big as this. I think we're gonna go for like 40 points or maybe 50 or 60, something around that area. All right, so that is gonna be the website headline basically. And then we also are going to just type in a few sentences that we can use as a subheadline or a teaser text, you know, the usual thing you see when you visit a website. So let's say this is a website for a fictional company that develops an app that provides features and services for its users. I know this is the most boring description of a website or a company that you have ever read, probably, but keep in mind we are just going for placeholders at this point, right? So why don't we decrease the size of this subheadline of this paragraph to around 16, and then just make sure it's about this wide, and for line height let's go for 120% maybe. Let's also move these letters a bit closer together, let's say -1 or -2% in letter spacing. Now we are going to need a button, right? And since we have created a button for our header navigation, I'm just going to use this, create an instance of this menu item and of this specific variant, right? And then I'm going to detach this component to make sure that we can actually change it and maybe use it as a completely different component for our button. So I'm going to press with this instance selected Command Option B. As you can see, it changed from purple to blue, right? Or black in this layers panel. And then I'm going to just select this and go for bold, right? We are going to go for bold. I'm going to rename this button, and then what I'm gonna do is turn this into a component. So even though we now have the menu item component and then we have the button component, even though they are basically almost the same, I just wanted to keep them separate because maybe we want to have a different style specific only for the header navigation, and maybe we want to use a different style for a regular button that will be just shown across the website. So let's just keep them separate, right? All right, so this means that I'm going to also select the text directly, and then I'm going to go to content and create a new component property. And under name, I'm going to specify button text. That's going to be the name of the component property. And the default value is going to be button text with capitalization on the first letter, and then create the property. For those of you that watched my previous episode of building a website or designing a website in Figma, you know that when we now use an instance of such a component, we are going to be able to easily change the button text right here, right? Without needing to modify the text layer. So let's just say that this is going to say learn more. And as you can see, we have already started to assemble the essential parts of a title area for our website, right? I think this reminds you of what you usually see on these types of websites. And it's also important to make sure that if we have elements like this, for example, a button that if we want to be actually reusing these, we need to create a structure for those in the forms of components. And speaking of things that will be reused across the website, we also have to think about text styles, right? So let's just take a look at these and let's think about what this means. What are the implications for the future design of our website? This is a headline. For a main headline like this, you usually use, for those of you that are familiar with HTML, this is usually going to be the H1 headline, the absolute main headline that you use for every page on a website. Then this text style is probably going to be the paragraph, also known as just P for paragraph. And since we are probably going to have multiple pages with multiple headlines and multiple paragraph text, let's just save this specific style of a headline and a paragraph text to some kind of a property. I think it's called a token, and we will then be able to reuse this headline and this paragraph text across the website and be easily able to change that from one single place. Let's select this title and go to text over here, right? And then click these 4 dots that will open a window called text styles. As you can see, there are no text styles because we haven't created any text styles, right? That makes sense. But we are going to create one right now. So I'm going to click this plus icon, and I am going to name this text style H1. And the description is going to be headline 1. Headline, I can't type, sorry. Headline 1. Main headline. You don't have to specify that this is the main headline. That's pretty evident for developers that that's the case. As soon as web developers see H1, they will know what this is about. So I'm just going to create this style, and as you can see, I now have connected this text style to H1. I can break this link, but this is very useful because let's say I'm going to have multiple headlines across my pages. Let me just type in headline for page 1 and then second page headline, right? And these text objects, they are going to be distributed across different pages, right? But then let's say that you want to change the size of this H1 headline everywhere. Let's say you don't want to keep this at 50, but just 48. And now watch as I change the font size of the text style, right? I can access that from here, like directly from an instance of this text style, and go to this menu, right? And change that here, or I can, with nothing selected, access this window that says local styles, and then click on that, click on this edit style button, and then I can change that here. And you can see it's updating all these headlines, and this means that this is basically a component and instances of text styles, right? So that is very useful. And just remember this as we are going to use that in the future. Same thing for paragraph text. We have 16 SF Pro Medium, 16 120% in terms of line height, and -2% in letter spacing. And because we don't want to be remembering and recalling this setup over and over again each time we use a paragraph text, I'm gonna again go to these 4 dots and create a new text style. And I'm going to call this paragraph. And I'm going to, you know what, I'm not going to specify. I think this is clear, right? This is just paragraph text or body, paragraph or body text. Create style. And this is a completely similar situation, identical situation, right? So when I change the style here in one place, it's being updated everywhere. So let's just keep that at 16. Very useful. Awesome. So we have, as we create these things, we will be adding more text styles and more elements to our component library. But for now, we just have the header menu, the button, and the text styles. So let's keep going. Let me select these 3 objects and then press Shift A to add an auto layout. I'm going to rename this auto layout to title area content, and then I'm going to select the headline by pressing Command and clicking here, and then Command and Shift clicking this description as well, and I'm going to change those to fill container under horizontal resizing on the right side of the Figma interface. So fill container, and this happens. not surprisingly. And now when I select the entire text, the title area content, and I change the size, you can see it is responsive. This is a similar principle to what I have already discussed in one of my previous videos where we create a responsive feature card, right? So this is the complete identical workflow. And by the way, if you want to learn more about, or like just to go over the essentials of building responsive interfaces in Figma, go and watch that video. I'm going to select again this whole auto layout, and under auto layout and object spacing, or spacing between items, I'm going to set that to 24. Let's just, now some of you might be asking, why haven't I set all these elements to fill container so that it's responsive? Well, the reason is when I set the button width to fill container, this happens, right? We could fix that by going over to the button component and then setting this alignment to center. But still, I don't think this is a good choice for desktop to make such a wide button. So for that reason, I'm going to keep the button at hug contents, which is going to read what are these paddings right here in the component, and then it's just going to make this button as small as possible, considering the text that we have put in, right? So if we add more text, this is going to be more wide. In any case, we have this title area content ready. Usually, when you encounter pages like this, you have this title area right here, and then on the other side, you get some kind of an image, right? You get a place for something. There's definitely always something on the right side. And as mentioned in the previous video, we are just going through one of the possible ways to design a website, because each website design, each project is very unique. But in general, this layout is very frequent, and because of that, I'm going to create a placeholder for our image, right? Or actually, before I do that, I'm just going to reuse one of the images that I used in my previous projects on this channel, and I'm going to place that photo here so that we can use that. So why don't we use this image from unsplash.com? You can see the name of the author right here. So if you like the photo, make sure to go check him out on unsplash.com. And I'm going to use this image. I'm going to move that over here. I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to make sure that this image, when I click on the image object and go to fill, and then click on this image thumbnail, this says fill, right? So the reason why is when I change the size of this image, it is going to stay it's not going to be deformed, right? The image is going to fill whichever dimension of this container is the biggest, in this case the height, and it's going to make the height of this container the height of this image that's inside. Let me just resize this to about this size, and then what I'm going to do is select this image and select the title area content and press Shift A. And this is going to create an auto layout called frame 1. I'm going to rename this because frame 1 is very generic. I am going to rename this to title area container. Then what I'm going to do is create another auto layout on top of this. So again, with this selected, Shift A, and I'm going to call this the title area, right? And this title area is going to have no padding, horizontal nor vertical. It's going to have no spacing, and it is going to be 1440 pixels. And to do that, I have to switch over from hug contents to fixed width and type in 1440, press enter, and then you can see that it's now wider than the title area container, which now is 1095. Title area, I'm going to go over auto layout right here and go center alignment. So why am I doing this? Well, if we are going to use this or just prepare designs for a bigger screen, let's say, we can then easily do this and change the size of this section while keeping this one intact, right? Makes sense. With that in mind, let me just create a fill for this section. It's going to be white, and in terms of vertical padding, we remove that, but I'm going to add back 96. So it's going to have 96 points from the top and bottom. Additionally, with title area container, I'm going to change that size to 1152. Why this value? Well, that's because that is the total width of all 12 columns, right? We want this section to span all 12 columns, and to do that, we have to set this to 1152. I'm going to select the image, and under horizontal resizing, I am going to set that to fill container, and vertical resizing fill container as well. Again, what is the reason for this? Well, that is because if we change the size of this title area container, it's going to, we have chosen that this image is going to be scaled and not this area. So that's why we have done that. You can see if I change the size of this section, the image is flexible now, right? Let's make sure this is back at 1152. And also in terms of height, when I now change the height of this title area container, you can see the image is flexible and not this object, right? So that is intentional, and we are satisfied with this result. And let's just select this image, and under corner radius, let's go for 24. Right? Or maybe 16, whichever value feels right. We are going for a very simple layout. So this title area is now almost done. Let's just take this and paste that on our website frame. Let me remove this and put that right here and center that by going Option H. Then I am going to drag these with options selected. I'm going to make sure it goes all the way to the edges, and that's the title area, not the title area container. And you can see that the title area container goes exactly to the leftmost point of the grid and to the rightmost point of the grid as well. Let me just stick this all the way here, and then since this is having a fixed width, let's just change the width of this section to span exactly 4 columns. So that is going to be 368. And let's just take a moment and realize why this is 368. Well, that's because we have a column system, and these columns, each of these is 74 pixels, and the gutter between them is 24. The total width of something that is going to span 4 columns is going to be 4 times 74, right? And then we're going to take that number and add 3 times 24. The reason is because while we have 4 columns, we have 3 spaces. So 4 times column width plus 3 times column gutter. And I don't have to do any calculation to know that this is going to be 368. So that's the reason why this element has this specific size. And then maybe I don't want this padding to be 145. Maybe I just want to have a system of spacing, which is also often a good idea. The system of spacing, when I use 96 points in top and bottom padding, let's just use 96 as the inner padding of this section as well, and let's type in 96. So this is what this is going to look like now. And now let's see what the final result looks like. So let me select this website frame and then start presenting. It's going to take a while to load. But in any case, here is the final result. We have the navigation bar on the top, we have the header menu, right? We get hover states on these buttons, and then when we scroll, you can see that we are scrolling through the website while this header stays in one single place. And you can see that we can scroll further all the way down to the end of the page. But there is nothing else except for this title section, so nothing to see here, right? And you can also see that if I scroll all the way up here, we get this awkward space, but I'm gonna fix that by just taking this and then moving this title area all the way to the top by pressing Option W, which is gonna align this to the top of this website frame. Now when I reset the prototype, this is what I get. I cannot scroll too far. Well, actually there is still some spacing. We probably have to reset the prototype. And yeah, so the actual reason why we can now scroll so far up is because there is this circle behind this title area. Let's just remove that and let's just keep this area back where it was. So right here, and I think this should work now. Yeah, this now works. So we cannot scroll any further. And congratulations, you have created a title, a website title section in Figma, along with some text styles and a component for a button. So now we are moving even closer to our goal of designing a full website. So this has been the second episode of a website design series on my channel. If this video series is bringing value to you, make sure to stay tuned for future videos by clicking the subscribe button, and also make sure to leave a like on this video if you have learned something new. Thanks for tuning in for creating this title section on our new fictional website, and I will see you in the next one.